Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. Your hosts today are Scott Barker and Jesse Mayshark, the founders of CompassKnox.com. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com. The Compass Point podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Almost an Agreement. Almost an Agreement is a layman's attempt to get a handle on the workings in government and politics that we deal with every day. Check them out at almostanagreement.com or subscribe for free on your favorite podcast provider. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And now, here are your hosts, Scott and Jesse from CompassKnox.com.
Welcome to Compass Points, podcast where we talk about all things Knox County, news, politics, government, business, education, anything that kind of, grabs our fancy. And my name is Scott Barker. I am co-founder and co-publisher of Compass. Usually joined by Jesse Fox Mayshark, who is also co-publisher and co-founder of Compass, but Jesse is not here today. I am joined, however, by our intrepid intern, Owen McCarthy. Welcome, Owen.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Scott.
Oh, great. Glad you're here. Yeah. Nobody wants to listen to me for an entire hour or so it's good that you're here. You can find all of this news and information that we're talking about at CompassKnox.com. You can go there. You can subscribe. We'll send you a newsletter every weekday. So check us out there. And we don't have a lot to talk about this week. This week, because of the holiday, was a little short. But we will be talking about several things. The Knoxville Police Department hired a permanent replacement for Brooklyn Belk, who was the first head of the Office of Professional Standards at the department, and it's a familiar face, and so we'll talk about that. We also have talk about the philanthropic effort to help fund affordable housing in Knoxville. Owen had a story this week on new funding for the Knoxville Botanical Garden, and we'll talk about that as well. And we're going to kick it off with the city budget, which passed on Tuesday. Easily passed, but there was quite a bit of fireworks there. So we've talked about the budget before, $461.6 million. The big the centerpiece of it, I guess you would call it, would be the raises for Knoxville police officers, the uniformed officers, the rank and file officers. Got a big boost in pay. The starting salary is going from $46,000 to $56,000 a year, which places it at the places KPD's starting pay at the top of the region's list. So they're hoping that will help alleviate their chronic manpower shortage. And but what was interesting about this and was the discussion about those that pay, and we had Councilwoman Amelia Parker questioning why so many officers were at the meeting, and there were quite a few. There were probably 20 or so, either inside the main assembly room or just outside, and questioned why so many were there since they're so short-handed, and that ended up leading to a discussion with or confrontation actually with Lauren Ryder, who's also a council member. Ryder made the point and confirmed that a lot of those officers were not on duty; they were actually off duty, and there because their pay increase was on the agenda, and that happens frequently whenever there's there were firefighters there as well, and members of other employees in other departments that were there, but then Mayor Indya Kincannon also said, well, we've had all these protests here, and so we have extra security, and that didn't really satisfy Parker, but then Ryder popped up and said that there had been this predates all these the Palestinian war protests, and she talked about an incident that happened in 2022 when one of Parker's supporters confronted her after the meeting and basically went with her to the parking garage and yelling at her, and that led to and then she accused Parker of orchestrating it because Parker was going to give the supporter a ride home, and so they went at it quite a bit. It was kind of but they cut it off pretty quickly, but it was it pretty much flared up. I know that Owen, you were there.
Yeah.
What did you think about that little confrontation?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a fair amount of, these budget meetings and hearings in the city council, and this was the first time that I've seen, something get kind of very blatantly, chippy, I guess is sure, chippy. There's a lot of words you could use.
Chippy's a good word, actually. So,
but yeah, it was interesting to see. I think it got a little bit to the core. I mean, I think Parker's argument at first, that I don't know how well she communicated it, was kind of saying, okay, even so the officers who were there off duty is one thing, and she seemed to kind of say like, who knows what her true thoughts on that are. I don't think anyone can say someone who's just in their normal life and they're off duty, shouldn't be able to go, especially when their pay is being discussed. But I think she felt that the number of officers who were there on duty for, security purposes was a waste of resources. Yeah. And she sort of said that the protesters, for one, weren't even there at that meeting. And she seemed to imply that she knew that ahead of time, and other people on the council didn't know that. And so I think that was kind of getting to the core maybe of how she views, police in general a little bit, just in terms of if there's protests here, we don't need to be trying to stifle that by just having a bunch of officers here. And I think Mackenzie, Councilwoman Mackenzie, as well as Ryder, seem to kind of share that sentiment of, maybe we don't need this many people here, especially when these protests have been, peaceful. And Parker kind of pointed out, these are kids, and one of them was wearing flip-flops, people we don't need to be afraid of or anything. So I think that they actually were kind of in agreement on that point. But and then Ryder was kind of saying like, well, I have a fuller story about this, about why maybe we do need police here, and kind of was saying like, and I'll say it if you push me. And then I guess she was sort of pushed, and then she said, yeah, in fact, one of your own supporters was following me to my car one time. So and obviously there's some long-standing resentment over that. I think that Ryder had, and one thing Parker has been. It was it wasn't surprising that she was questioning the police presence. She's not been, or she's been a critic of the Knoxville Police Department, and she really holds their feet to the fire at these meetings, and is not and often is at odds with other council members. Right.
She is in many instances she will be the only person to vote no on on a matter. She voted no on the budget,
right,
for example. So, there's some, and I think that there's some lingering, I don't know if resentment might be too strong a word, council members over the proposed resolutions that she had brought forward on calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and basically accusing Israel of war crimes and they did not like being put in that position and so in many ways I think they might blame her for all the I don't want to speak for them, but there does seem to be some lingering bad feelings over that.
Well, Ryder sort of alluded to that at one point, and just kind of said, was basically saying that resolution just didn't really fall under the jurisdiction of that body, in her view. And of course, there have been cities that have kind of passed those sorts of resolutions to just sort of, put pressure. I don't think it's really panned out. I think kind of the idea was for a bunch of cities everywhere to do that and kind of send a message. But, Parker kind of wanted to be a part of that, and the rest of the council just didn't feel like it was in their jurisdiction.
Yeah. They basically have said, this needs to, we need to focus on issues directly affecting Knoxville.
Right. And
Parker's view is, no, we need to stand up for what she views as being right. So,
right.
That's and it's kind of interesting since all that started. Now, while the United States certainly hasn't abandoned Israel,
no.
they are trying to put pressure on Israel to hold off on civilian casualties in Gaza, which over 30,000 have died there. Civilians, or not, more than 30,000 Palestinians have died.
Yeah.
So anyway, that kind of overshadowed the whole budget thing. I mean, the budget discussion was, on the budget itself, was pretty straightforward, and like I said, the vote was 7-1. We had one councilwoman, Lynn Fugate, was absent, but the vote was 7-1, with Parker being the only dissenter, and so that went fairly easily. Yeah. One thing that was in the budget, or not in the budget, wasn't in the budget, but there was a resolution providing historic preservation funding for the Knoxville Botanical Garden and Arboretum.
Yep.
And Owen, you sat and had a chat with the executive director there. Talk about what the money's for, how they're going to use it, and a little bit of background on the Arboretum.
Yeah, so this is a program that the city's had since 2014. They call it the Historic Preservation Program. It's administered by the Department of Housing and Community Services. And basically every year, they look through applications and they pick. It started out a lot in East Knoxville, and Kevin Dubose, the director there, told me that it was kind of the idea was to sort of support historic urban neighborhoods that were facing demolition by neglect. And so, I think it's kind of focused in the East Knoxville area a bit. And so that holds true this year. The Knoxville Botanical Garden and Arboretum is getting just shy of $250,000 to restore some buildings. So it's a 44-acre property, but these restorations are going toward three main buildings that in the main one is their visitor center, and it also doubles as their office space. It was built in 1929. It was built by a man named Joe Howell, who was, the fifth generation of the man who first built a farm on that property that later would grow into the Howell Nursery, which obviously has sort of a legacy here. So, the executive director of the garden tells me that it's a huge community asset. It provides respite in that area, and that it's free to the public 365 days a year. And she also said that, investing there makes a lot of sense right now because, we're sort of on the brink of these infrastructure changes in that area from the, federal grant, the Reconnecting Communities federal grant that Knoxville got. But when was that they got that?
Well, just earlier this year.
Okay, yeah. Back in March it was, I think. Which, that's the Biden administration, which was saying we want to sort of be able to invest in communities that have been kind of where connectivity has been sort of severed by urban renewal. And obviously that's true in Knoxville. So, the city's sort of waiting for more kind of greenways to be built there. And so at the Botanical Garden, the greenway is going to, connect it straight to, the school that's right next door and the church. And so, they kind of argue it makes sense for us to kind of up our game here because we're getting ready. We're going to have more people coming our way. So,
and for those who have not been to the Botanical Garden, it is very idyllic.
Yes,
place, hilltop. There are obviously gardens there. Lots of area and space to walk around in. They do a lot of special events there too.
Yeah.
In fact, one year there was a beers festival performance there. So,
wow.
It's a little bit out of the way. People don't really realize where it is, but it is a place that a lot of people go to enjoy. I have a friend of mine who goes there virtually every day. Every day it's not raining, he's there. So he really likes and just to go and spend a little peaceful time.
Yeah,
and it is that, and the this program is interesting too because he can you said this was going to be almost $250,000. That's not the they don't have to be that big of a project. The one of the other the only other project that they're funding this year from that pool of money is some work at the Birdhouse, which is a community center in the 4th and Gill neighborhood, one of the historic neighborhoods in North Knoxville, and but you're getting about $7,000 for some minor work there. So it's projects large and small that this goes toward, and historic preservation has been an issue that brings out a lot of passion in people. Knoxville's one of the things that you hear about from people who visit Knoxville is talking about all the older historic buildings downtown, for instance, that have been preserved over the years, and so it's viewed by many people as a major asset to the city. So, what's the time frame on when these repairs are going to be done? Do you know?
At the moment, so one thing they mentioned is that you have to be shovel ready in order to qualify for this. So you have to have quotes and contractors ahead of time. So they really do have their ducks in a row, and they're going to get started. There already was some kind of like tarping over the places on the roof where they're trying to fix them up. I can't recall exactly when they plan to be done, but I know they're getting started over the summer. So
all right, sounds good. One other speaking of funding for city projects and all, one of the things that was in the budget is $8 million for affordable housing in the city. That's the affordable housing fund is just say 8,000 and 8 million. The affordable housing, it's a major issue now. We've got a housing shortage, actually across all price points, but this is the most that the city has set aside for affordable housing in recent memory. But there's money that's not in the budget that's coming from philanthropists, and we've got we had a story this week on that effort. The Mayor Kincannon had and Kevin Dubose looked around, and there are other cities that do that get donors to help fund affordable housing, and Nashville is one. They've got a big fund in Nashville that where they raise money and pay for affordable housing projects. So they went to decided to try that here. Went to several high-profile philanthropists in the city. They got commitments from the Haslam family, Randy and Jeannie Boyd, the Clayton family, and Phil Lawson, who actually has a company that builds affordable housing, manages affordable housing. So he's intimately familiar with the challenges there. But collectively, that they have donated $2 million. It is money that is going to and they're doing this funneling through the United Way. And as I said, it's not in the budget. What will happen is when the city has a project they want to tap into that money, then they will notify the United Way. They'll go to council to get approval to tap into that money, add it to the budget, and what the city uses that for, and we've talked about this before, is they use it for what they call gap funding. And affordable housing, especially affordable rental housing, big apartment complexes, they cost just as much to build as market rate apartments do. It's still got to buy land, still have to buy materials, still have to pay labor. So those are the big costs, and they're the same. So in order to charge less in rent and keep rents affordable, then they have to get creative on the financing end, cut down on their annual costs primarily. And one way to do that is to have more equity in it, and the city will use its funding as part of the finance package for each of these projects, so that the developer of the project can meet those goals. And they use other tools as well. Affordable housing tax credit is one, or low income housing tax credits is one thing that they do. But the city, one of the things that the talked to the to some of us, had Randy Boyd and Jim Haslam and Phil Lawson, talked to all them, and one of the things that they talked about was the leveraging that the city dollars accomplishes. The city calculates that for every dollar in tax money that they spend, in city tax money that they spend on an affordable housing project, $17 comes from either the private sector or those tax credits, other sources. So this $2 million donation from the four families. It sounds like a mafia thing, but the
philanthropists.
The philanthropists, yes. Yeah. So that money will actually end up leveraging about $34 million if that ratio holds true, and it's been constant for the last few years that's been what it is. So we will be obviously watching that, and we'll be reporting on when and how they decide to use that. So in essence, that means that the city will have at its disposal either through tax money or philanthropy money, access to about $10 million in for affordable housing the next year. And so we should probably look for lots of activity on that front.
Yeah.
And the one other thing that happened, we mentioned at the top, was Knoxville Police Department hiring a permanent director of the deputy chief for the Office of Professional Standards. That office was created 2 years ago. When Chief Paul Noel came on board, it is the place where they go through and review the policies, procedures, standards. That's also where the what used to be known as the Internal Affairs Unit is located. And they do, obviously the internal investigations of, police alleged misconduct, shootings, those kinds of things. So, the first holder of that position, you don't have to be a law enforcement officer to have that position. And the first person to hold it was a former federal prosecutor named Brooklyn Belk. We talked about this last year. She resigned abruptly, and after just a few months on the job, and I believe it was about 6 months that she was on the job, and so she left. And what Noel did was he hired an interim deputy chief for that position, and he got a doozy as a former federal judge, Bruce Guyton, and Guyton retired a couple of years ago after 20 years on the bench, and he's a highly respected federal judge, and so I guess this was kind of something for him to do in retirement. Well, turns out that Noel decided to offer, and Guyton accepted the job on a permanent basis. So Guyton's that's actually his third career. He was a private attorney before he was a judge, and then he's a magistrate judge for 20 years, and now he's deputy chief at KPD. So there's this going to be kind of a seamless transition there, and it's a job that Noel has emphasized. He was hired from the New Orleans Police Department. He had a reputation as a change agent, and he's instituted a lot of changes at KPD, and this is one of them. He says that he wants KPD to be, the officers to be more accountable to each other and accountable to the public, and so this is a critical job in the way that Noel sees the department evolving as it moves forward. So so that is like I said, we had a short week, so there was other stuff that went on, and if you subscribe to Compass, you know that. The next week we have a couple of school board meetings, the work session and the regular meeting. The work session is on Monday, and then Thursday will be the meeting, and it's going to be at the Summer Place conference room where they school board meets every month. And the big thing on the agenda for next week is that there's a policy where they're going to prohibit any school library or school library materials that have explicit sexual images. New state law, but if they've got explicit sexual images in the book, then they're going to take them out. Essentially. So
is there a lot of books in school libraries with explicit sexual images? I wonder.
Images I don't know. There certainly weren't when I was in school.
me neither. Wasn't that long ago.
It's been a few years.
Yeah.
I mean, the question to me is, what's the definition of? That's always the hard one with these, is because it becomes a definition of what is sexually explicit. And that becomes an interpretation thing, which is always fun grounds for good school board meeting arguments.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, it's important to note that this does not affect the texts of these. It's not that, the word doesn't affect the words on the page. It only deals with images.
Okay.
So, that might be a little easier to do, but then you have, if you've got an art book that's got nudes in it. I mean, there's some who think that
right
that is overboard. So we'll see how it actually gets implemented, but they're going to take that up. Like I said, it's got you can do that by state law. So you basically have to have a policy now. So
yeah,
but Jesse is going to be all over that when he returns, and we will. That'll just about wrap it up for us this week. Short show on a short week, and so one thing I was going to ask you, Owen, is you've been here a couple of weeks now. You jumped in the deep end of the Knoxville pool. What are your impressions so far?
Man,
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
sorry.
No, that's okay. My impression is that I feel that people are very civically engaged. I really do. Compared with where I hail from, a little town called South Lyon, Michigan, which is just a suburb of Detroit. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know anyone who could tell you the first thing about our city council. And obviously that has to do with the size of the city as well. But no, I just get the sense that people have a lot of pride in this town, and they really want good things for it. People come from different viewpoints. I sound like a politician right now. But no, that is the impression I get.
Yeah.
And I think there's also people in leadership who want those things as well. And it's also, I think the whole Southern hospitality thing has been a culture shock to me. I think it's a real thing. I mean, going to the city council meetings or county commission, like, I don't know, like they stand up for the pledge every time, and like everyone's just always, hey, how you doing? It's just a little bit of a different thing. But yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. I think that the sort of competition between the county sheriffs and the KPD is something that's really interesting. And I think if I were to think about, like, I don't know, the more contentious things that definitely comes to mind is just the fact that they kind of feel that they need to be like one-upping each other in terms of pay, and I guess sort of an unfortunate situation. But yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. So
not for the officers. The officers kind of like them getting raises
right.
a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, thanks. Appreciate that, Owen. That will just about do it for us. Once again, this is Compass Points. We are the podcast of Compass, CompassKnox.com. Go there, subscribe, read, enjoy, get informed, all that good stuff. I want to thank our producer, the intrepid, that's the second time I've used that word today, Seth Harbor. Lord Seth. Thank you, Seth. Our music is by Will Wright, and we will talk to you again next week.
Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. Your hosts today are Scott Barker and Jesse Mayshark, the founders of CompassKnox.com. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com. The Compass Point podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Almost an Agreement. Almost an Agreement is a layman's attempt to get a handle on the workings in government and politics that we deal with every day. Check them out at almostanagreement.com or subscribe for free on your favorite podcast provider. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.